On a Friday mailbag show, you're wondering which coach has had the most pressure on them. We discuss next.
You are Locked On Nebraska, your daily Nebraska Cornhuskers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Good morning, and thanks for making Locked On Nebraska your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase.
Okay, good morning. Welcome to the Locked On Nebraska podcast. I'm Mitch Sherman from The Athletic. Connor Happer of 1620 The Zone is with me. It is June 27th, second to last podcast in this month of June. And then as the calendar dictates, we will be in July. So
wow.
It's crazy how that works. How are you feeling, Connor, first of all?
My energy, I feel like, is back. I don't know how the voice is going to hold up for like long periods of time, but we should be able to knock out this mailbag without any issue, it seems like.
Okay. I think we have a good mailbag ahead. We'll be able to spend a little bit of time on each question, not an overflow of but some good ones here. So we're going to start today with Null in Clarksville, Tennessee. He says, put a pin in it if you haven't already.
Nice.
We will do that. Nathan will do that on the next episode. There's our map right there for you who are watching on YouTube. It's filling up. I noticed something weird when I was looking at this map last night. We don't have anybody from Arizona, which I really don't understand. Arizona is a huge state for Nebraska football fandom, and there's nobody from Arizona. Like
Arizona and Mitch. How about like Vegas too? Nothing going on in Vegas yet.
So if you're listening or watching from the Southwest, from the desert, we need you to chime in to the mailbag. Also, maybe not as much of a surprise. It's kind of blank up there in the Idaho, Montana. I apologize. Wyoming.
Yeah. We gotta get. I know there's some Montana people out there. I know there is a Montana guy who listens to my show every day. So yeah, we gotta get. We'll fill that up. People will start to come out of the woodwork, I think.
Okay. Clarksville, Tennessee, Noel says, cool that they hired Oscar Isaac as our new play-by-play announcer.
Okay. So full disclosure, we had to look this up. We don't know. I don't know who Oscar Isaac is, but I will say that Kyle Crooks does look like Oscar Isaac, who is an actor.
It's just the beard. I think it's kind of just the beard and maybe the face shape a little bit. He's a Guatemalan American singer and actor.
So he was in Ex Machina. Did you ever see Ex Machina?
Is that with the girl who's a machine?
Yes.
I have seen that. Yeah.
He seems like he could be. He would be like a really good, like mob boss, like guy who's in charge, but kind of, interesting.
Crooks is from Jersey, so
good.
It's not great. Guatemala, but maybe some carryover there. All right. He says Noel, I do have a legitimate question.
Okay, good.
Since I've been around the sun enough times to remember when Devaney came to Nebraska, it got me thinking, which coach had the most pressure on him coming into the job? I would not put Devaney on this list since Bill Jennings was not a tough act to follow. But among Osborne, Solich, Callahan, Frost, and Rhule, he didn't include Riley in his list. But I don't know if that's an oversight or if he just didn't include him. But so we won't include Riley in our conversation.
Well, we can include Riley. I mean, Riley had some pressure on him. He had to take what Bo left and take it to the next level. That was the idea. He did not do that. That did not happen. The easy answer here is Solich, right? I know. Take it over for Osborne.
Yeah. Right. Like he took over after 3 national championships in 4 years. So that's tremendous pressure. And he had never been a head coach. All of these other people that we're talking about had been head coaches before. And at one level, in the case of Bill Callahan, it was only in the NFL. But the NFL, like that's the NFL. So for multiple reasons, I think Frank had the most pressure out of all of them.
Frank went 58-19 at Nebraska and got fired. So yeah, I think there was some pressure there. They went to a national championship game. They won a Big 12 title, and like they had some pressure on them. And he still got fired after what, 6 years?
If you were going to rank them, the remaining coaches on this list: Osborne, Callahan, we'll put Riley, Frost, Rhule. So that's 5. Like, how would you go 1 through 5 in that group? Just off the top of your head, like you got to rank them, 1 being the most pressure, 5 being the least. I'd have to lean
on Null a little bit here, because I guess Osborne, I never really thought about how much pressure he had when he took over. Nobody really thinks about that. I assume there was some pressure coming off of Devaney having all that success.
I wasn't there, but yeah, he had pressure because for the same reason, just not quite as dramatic, that Solich had pressure. You're just coming off of national championships, and maybe it was as dramatic. Like I was the fervor and attention around Nebraska football every bit as intense in 1973 as it was in 1998. Probably wasn't a lot different, honestly. I mean, there weren't as many games on TV, but people cared. So I'd go Osborne number 1 on that list out of 5. I think I would put Frost at 2.
Really? Mm-hmm. Well, Frost pressure
different
was
kind of pressure.
Frost pressure was not self-inflicted, like he couldn't help it, but like,
it was desperation.
There was pressure on him just simply because of who he was, not necessarily because of where the program was or where he was expected to take it.
I mean, for a different reason, because of where the program sat. Because at that point, Nebraska seemingly had hit rock bottom, but oh no, it had not. But it seemingly had hit rock bottom in 2017 when Mike Riley won 5 games.
I would last, right? Rhule's dead last year.
Rhule or Riley. I mean, Callahan had pressure, absolutely, just because of what Steve Peterson built him up to be, and the fact that he'd been to a Super Bowl as an NFL coach, and he was an outsider, and people maybe didn't want to be initially accepting of him. So I go Osborne, Frost, Callahan, and then the question is Riley or Rhule, who had less pressure?
Rhule might have the least pressure out of any coach at Nebraska, like ever. I mean, now we're basically including all of them at this point, but talking about the recent guys, because there's been a lot more in the last 20 years, and there has been, really at any time that we know of before that. So I'd
listen to that argument that Rhule has had less pressure than any of the coaches hired at Nebraska in the last 50 years.
I think I'm willing to stand by that. I think it sounds right when I say it over and over again. I don't think any coaches had less pressure to win than Matt Rhule, just because of the depths of where the program has been to over the last 5-10 years.
I mean, that kind of adds pressure depending on how you want to look at it. But we're not saying that Matt Rhule doesn't face pressure. It's one of the most pressure-filled jobs in college football, but in comparison to Frank Solich, it's a little different.
Yeah, no doubt. Okay, good question. That's a good thought starter to start things off. Thank you. And we'll check mark that in Clarksville, Tennessee. Question from Scott in Zionsville, Indiana. All right, here we go. Generally speaking, what do you think is the most common reason that out-of-state recruits choose to come to Nebraska? Also, please tell the map keeper to throw a pin on for me. Okay, Zionsville, Indiana, you're in.
Well, most common reason that out-of-state recruits choose to come to Nebraska, I'm going to say it's probably similar to the reason that all recruits choose to go to any school, and it's about the coaches at the school. Number one, I mean, above facilities, above tradition, above the ability to win right now, I think recruits in people will always say, don't pick a school for the coach, but who's the one out there doing the recruiting? Who's meeting with mom and dad in the living room? Who's spending the most time with you when you come on a visit? What are the what are the things that swing recruiting in the most wild ways possible, like when you have coaching changes or coach firings and such. The coaching, to me, it's about, what can Matt Rhule do for you if you're an out-of-state recruit?
I would say to add to that, and that's most common is just so difficult because
it could be money.
Right. I would say that the thing that Nebraska, tries to, depending on the recruit, but I would say the thing that Nebraska tries to probably make clear to its prospective student athletes is how well they're going to be treated when they get here, meaning how good of a student athlete experience you're going to have, especially for, if we're talking about football, which we are, right? It's the meals, it's the building that you get to basically live in. It's your actual living space and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and it's the fact that you are kind of a star when you're on campus. You're a Nebraska football player. Everybody kind of knows who you are, not only on campus, but also in the city and in the state. So I think that's a draw for some people. And I would say that's probably a reason as well. Yeah.
I think that sounds like the reason, what we should say. Like that's it seems the most logical. It seems like if these were 35-year-olds picking to go to a place to do a job, that would be at the top of the list. But when you're talking about 17-year-olds, and I mean, we've made these coaches to be celebrities. We make them. Hold on a second here.
Oh yeah, here we go. This will be good.
We've done this to coaches. We're showing Matt Rhule. We're showing Matt Rhule, the likeness of Matt Rhule from the EA Sports College Football 26. I mean, we've done a lot for these coaches. There he is at the WWE event. So I think it's coaches, even though we probably say, oh no, it shouldn't be the coaches. Don't pick a school for that.
Everything makes a difference. Everything makes a difference when you sort of break it down. All right, let's take a quick break here. We have plenty more questions to come from you all. Thanks for submitting your questions on a Mailbag Friday. We're back after this.
Right now, got a message for you from Gametime. Have you ever decided at the last minute to head to a ball game with friends or family? Maybe it's game day, and you suddenly realize you want to be in the stands. I've had that happen. That's exactly where Gametime comes in. We got an email to the show from somebody saying that they wanted to know how they could get in with Gametime. They needed a reminder of the way to do it. And they said, can you tell me that code? Because it's the first time I'm going to use it. I'm going to tell you the code right now. It's Locked On College. You put that code into the app, into the site. It'll get you $20 off your first purchase. And you're already saving money. It allows you to splurge on food, drinks, merch, or invite a bigger group of people with you to the game because you're using Gametime, which makes buying tickets fast and simple. Prices on the app, they drop the closer you get to first pitch, especially if you're going to watch the Kansas City Royals on June 27th, as I am tonight. They might be giving the tickets away by the time the game starts, although it is the world champion Los Angeles Dodgers in town. Will the Royals ever score another run?
No.
If you want to find out, go to Gametime, get your seat views, get that lowest price guarantee, and get in to the stadium. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use that code Locked On College for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, you use the code Locked On College for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed.
Some added value for Gametime here. I imagine a lot of people are going to be interested in that tomorrow when Shohei Ohtani pitches at Kauffman.
I missed it by one day.
One day. I know many people who are going to the Sunday game as well. They also missed it by one day. So nice job.
So I could probably go. My son's team, we play at 8 and noon tomorrow, so we'll be clear out of the youth part of our baseball experience by the time the Royals and the Dodgers throw it out there on Saturday night. But to find somewhere to sit back and watch Shohei, I don't think I'm going to go to the K 2 nights in a row. That gets pricey, but maybe not with Game Time.
Maybe not with Game Time. That's the whole point. All right, here's John in St. Paul, Minnesota, one of the beautiful Twin Cities. Been listening to the pod since you guys started, but this is my first question for you. My question for the mailbag is as follows. What is the future of the Rover position? Oh, this is good. This is a football question. It sounds like we are sticking with the 3-3-5, but the 2 deep at the position from last year is gone. What do you think is the plan for the Rover coming up this year? Is Deshaun Singleton moving over there from a different safety spot? Or are we hoping that one of the young defensive backs emerges at that spot? I really enjoy and appreciate listening to the show.
I just ran into a guy this morning who told me that, well, he noticed that we hadn't done a bunch of shows this week, that we'd only done 2. And he said, are you coming with more pods? Because I really need that football fix. Like, it's this time of year where hoops is over, the College World Series is over. Like, I need my football fix. So this is a perfect question for that kind of a listener. I had to look this up because my football brain is kind of in moving slow right now. So I was like, who played Rover last year? What was Isaac Gifford, who is gone? And his backup was Ramir Stewart for much of the year as a redshirt freshman. And Ramir Stewart didn't play that much because Isaac Gifford took basically all of the reps. So Nebraska kind of treats the Rover just like a third safety. I think much like you see with the Jack linebacker, which is kind of that linked spot between the linebacker group and the D line. Like, you train a little bit with both groups. The Rover, in the right situation, if depending on the opponent, can be a link between the DBs and the linebackers. So you want someone who's a good tackler. Like, your best tackling safety should perhaps be your Rover. He's going to be used in run support. It's a versatile position. They're absolutely keeping the spot. Like, even if Nebraska were to go to a 4-3, I guess that's seven front in the box. You're going to have 4 in the back. You're going to have somebody it's just a safety who whatever. They're going to probably call one of those safeties a Rover.
Without knowing like the football specific part of it, like what makes that what you need from an athletic standpoint that gives you an advantage at that specific position, I would just say generally it's an excuse for Nebraska to have 3 safeties on the field at the same time, like you said. So, I think it works well for this defense considering the personnel that they have. We've been talking about their corners, all off season long. Maybe it's a Sierra Wright and Andrew Marshall, on the edges trying to lock things down. And then you could also have a way to also still have Marcus Buford and Malcolm Hartzog and Deshaun Singleton all on the field at the same time,
those are the top 3 guys at safety.
That sounds like a great defensive backfield to me.
Those are the top 3 guys at safety, and then you have a bunch of other safeties who I think are just waiting to break out. Like, I'd put Caleb Benning at or near the top of that list of players that they are expecting things from. We don't know that much yet about Justin Rhett, who's the transfer from Georgia, who came in and was a highly rated recruit, of course, because he signed with Georgia out of high school. Ramir Stewart was the guy who was Gifford's backup last year, so I think you have to look at him too. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see. But as far as the starting like frontline guys when they go to camp in July, it's going to be Singleton, Hartzog, and Marquise Buford at the safety spots, and one of those guys will be the Rover.
Yeah, sounds good to me. I love. I mean, if there's a thing that I really like about this team, so I mean, I guess there's a few things, but I really do like the defensive backfield. I like the talent that they have back there. They've been able to put that thing together pretty well.
You like the 38 defensive backs who are on the roster?
Hey, yeah, the chances are you're going to find 5 of them that could hit. Yeah, I like what they have back there. All right, let's go to weekly questionnaire. Vince in Napa. He says, happy Friday, and thanks for allowing me to contribute. So here is a question. He says, it's geared in fantasy as opposed to reality. Excellent. He says Raiders tight end Brock Bowers, who played at Georgia, is from Napa and has also started Napa High School. I have it on good authority from former Napa High assistant coach via Facebook DM that Nebraska offered Brock Bowers a scholarship when he was in high school. Given the direction of both programs, it's fair to say that Bowers made the right choice by ending up at Georgia. However, as a Napa native and a Nebraska alum who follows high school football closely in the Napa Valley, coupled with seeing things that go amiss with Nebraska's tight ends in recent years, I often think of Bowers as a Husker and how his career would have looked, especially because I've seen him overcome deficient coaching before and after Georgia. In your eyes, how would a Brock Bowers career as a Husker have looked? What a random question. I love it.
Notice that little backhanded slap at the Napa high school coaching staff there from Vince.
Yeah,
whoa!
We gotta get on the message boards out there.
What's deficient coaching in high school for Brock Bowers?
Tough look.
Okay, well, it doesn't take inside information from a former Napa High assistant to tell us that Brock Bowers was offered a scholarship by Nebraska out of high school, because he was offered a scholarship out of high school by basically everyone.
Mm-hmm.
He was a 5-star recruit or in that category. Just to refresh your memory on who Brock Bowers is, he was a 2-time All-American at Georgia, twice won the Mackey Award, twice won national championships. And all he did as a rookie last year, after going 13th in the first round, was set the all-time rookie records in the NFL, not among tight ends, among receivers for receptions and receiving yards. First team All-Pro. So he is as good as it gets. And if you watched him at Georgia, you knew that he was a man among boys. How he wasn't ranked the number 1 tight end in the country coming out of Napa High School, like that kind of blows my mind, because he was great at Georgia from the very beginning. So number 1 in those recruiting rankings in the class of 2021 was Jake Briningstool, who signed with Clemson. And he was a 2-time All-ACC pick, so good player, set the Clemson record for tight end career receptions, and then was undrafted this last spring and signed with the Chiefs. Number 2 on the list of tight ends in that class, I'll say Brock Bowers was 3 in the 24/7 composite. Number 2 on that list was Connor?
Thomas Fidone, the librarian himself.
Yeah,
people.
It was Thomas Fidone, who endured 2 ACL injuries at Nebraska to derail his progress, but he rebounded, caught 61 balls in 3 years, 4 touchdowns, 7th round pick this last year of the New York Football Giants. So, what would Brock Bowers have looked like in a Nebraska uniform?
I think it would have went well. That's my takeaway. But I do think of to Vince's point, like I do think about this kind of stuff often. You know, how many, you know, we oftentimes lament when guys end up elsewhere in the recruiting process that we think, oh my God, could you imagine if that guy would have been in Nebraska for the last 3 years instead of dominating it wherever the heck he is? I'm like, yeah, I don't know. It kind of just, everything changes instantly for that guy's career. Should he end up at Nebraska or any other place,
for better or for worse?
For better or for worse. Yeah,
in this case, I don't know that it could have been better.
You need a lot of luck in order for to get good play out of really talented players. There's still an element of that exists. So I don't know. I think that his talent probably wins out on all that stuff, but you never really know.
You don't know what banana peel he might have stepped on the way to class on the campus in Lincoln, and torn his patellar tendon or whatever. So I like, he's one of the few players in recent college football history who I would feel confident about just putting in basically any situation and saying, yep, he was going to be great no matter what. Yeah. Like a Randy Moss, to go, way back into the 90s. I think Travis Hunter would have been great wherever you put him over the last few years. He was at Jackson State, an FCS school. If Travis Hunter had stayed at Jackson State for his entire career, he still would have been a first round pick coming out this year. So not many guys like that. And Brock Bowers was one. So he would have upgraded things for Nebraska and been a great Husker, but it was not to be.
I wonder what the Napa football scene is like. Do they get made fun of by other people because of the wine and all the references to the wine and stuff? I don't know.
Don't you think that like the teams that they play also are steeped in wine I mean, it's not like only Napa. Maybe if they get into the playoffs and they're going against like a Southern Cal, well, I don't even know. Like they kind of separate. Like you got Northern California and the Southern section. They sometimes they get together and play a big game at the end, like the Northern side and the Southern side. But I don't think Napa's ever been involved in that one.
I don't know. All right, I got some research to do, I guess. All right, so
Vince.
Let's take a break. We still got a couple questions left, and we'll do that on the other side on the Locked On Nebraska podcast.
All right, we're back. Segment 3, final segment of the week. Thank you for being with us on this Friday. Mitch Sherman, Connor Happer. We go to Chad in Derby, Kansas.
Let's go.
Greetings. There is a pin in Derby, by the way. He says, guys, help me out. I have this jug of Kool-Aid sitting in front of me, but for the first year ever, I'm refusing to chug it. There's been a lot of disappointment as a Husker fan for me over the decades. Remember the 80s? I mean, disappointing in a different way than the last decade. But the last 10 years specifically have been underwhelming. I just can't do it this time. Talking about chugging the Kool-Aid. For these reasons. 1, Nebraska has 3 new coordinators. My whole life, I've heard about how players are, quote, more comfortable in subsequent years after the first one with a new coordinator or system. But now I'm supposed to forget that and believe all 3 phases of the game are going to improve dramatically? Not buying it. Where are the 4 and 5 stars? This is point 2. The last 3 years have been the Wild West with NIL, and we've been told Nebraska was a leader in that structure. It's well-funded in the NIL operation. So where are the 4 and 5 stars? If football means everything to this state, which is a common refrain, then why aren't we awash in great talent? It seems that we missed the window to buy results and catapult the program back into prominence. He said, I know this is all incredibly negative, the opposite of what a fan or fanatic should say. I swear I'm not a trolling Iowa dude, but my feelings are my feelings based on history. I'm just having a hard time seeing more than 6 wins this year. Help me, TBR.
Chad. Okay, so first of all, I don't think you're alone in the sentiment of like, hey, I just can't I can't do this to myself again. I hear this every single year from people. It's like, sure. I want to buy in. I want to say that they're going to win 10 games and then they kill me every single time. Like I'm kind of with you on that. They ultimately still have to get over the problems that everybody has laid out for them and that Matt Rhule has identified, which is being able to win close games. Like all this stuff theoretically helps you get there. And the first year coordinators thing is a really interesting way to look at it. At the same time, Nebraska's offensive coordinator for the majority of last year was removed and not good. And then their special teams coordinator, they actually...
It's Mike Eckler. Do we need to say anything else?
Right. So I don't know. It doesn't have to be bad just because they're new at the same time as well. But I appreciate the skepticism on just going all in and saying, I think they're going to win 10 games and go to the playoff this year.
I think it's sensible to look at the coordinator situation and say, hey, that's a lot of change in leadership, and kind of walk into that, tiptoe into that instead of just jumping into the pool with all kinds of excitement. I will say, like, Dana Holgerson's 4 games with Nebraska last fall kind of make it so he's not a first-year coordinator. I think the time that he's had to be around the program and to get invested with these players and for them to learn what he is bringing makes him kind of the equivalent of a second-year coordinator right now. Even though he didn't spend the entire season with Nebraska, I think it was enough of a sample size that they're not going to go through the kind of first-year growing pains that you might see if he had come to Nebraska, say, in January or February. The defense, John Butler was here last year, so I'm just playing devil's advocate on this one because I have questions about the defensive leadership too, since Tony White did such a good job for the past 2 years. I have questions there too. I think John Butler is going to be greatly aided by the presence of Phil Snow as associate head coach. And I also think that Matt Rhule's teams just play good defense. Okay, so I've erased concerns about those, and Eckler is just Eckler. Like I have confidence that he is going to put a good special teams operation or an improved special teams operation out there on the field. Let me say this: can Nebraska get worse in special teams? Like that? That's like if you're worried about the special teams and you're using that as a reason to think that Nebraska's not going to be able to get over the 6-win hump, like they won 6 last year with unbelievably awful special teams play. There were some okay moments. I get it. I'm not throwing Ed Foley under the bus, but it's going to be better this year. I'm confident in saying that. And then on the 4 and 5 star stuff, it matters, but with the portal today, we don't look at it as much. Yeah. Like, who are you more excited about? Deshaun McCullough and Marcus Watson-Trent, who didn't have that 5-star attached to them out of high school, or Williams Nwaneri, who did? Well, the first two I mentioned are going to be playing big roles on this Nebraska defense, starting or in the rotation. Nwaneri is maybe a year away. Maybe he gets on the field. They find a way to get him in some pass rushing situations. Like the talent, super important, yes, but where they were rated out of high school isn't quite what it was 5 years ago.
Yeah, well, I think the idea is like you need dudes, right? How many dudes would you pick out?
And you can find dudes from different places now.
You can. I would also say this: Nebraska just generally needs to like. You could play better without being a roster full of superstars. I mean, Nebraska has been constantly stubbing its toe basically over the last 10 years. If you get the coffee tables out of the way and you stop stubbing your toe on things, all of a sudden your path to winning 6 and 7 and 8 games becomes a lot clearer. And then you start thinking about, all right, where do we need to go to get 10 or 9 or something like that? And you have a 5-star quarterback, and the hope is that guy plays like a 5-star this year with a good offensive coordinator as well. So I think the path exists, but I agree with Chad and being a little skeptical of like, hey, we're gonna make this big jump right away. Finally, we go to the map maker himself, Nathan in Kansas. Nathan, put a double pin in for you, my friend. Thank you for all your hard work. The updated map is attached. Thanks. As someone who listens to more games on the radio than on TV, I am super excited about the hiring of Kyle Crooks to be the new voice of Husker football. Hearing Kyle talk about Greg and his legacy was moving. Greg will always have a soft spot for me as the voice of Husker football. I know you guys spent a little time on this back in February on the podcast, but I wanted to see if you guys would take some time to share any Greg memories, favorite calls, personal stories with Greg Sharpe that you might have. That's a really good way to end the podcast. We could do that, Mitch.
There's a balloon in my booth.
Yeah. I would say that like he was like personally, he was really welcoming in a way and sort of unassuming in a way where, like if you're growing up as a young media person in the state, you're like looking at all the people that you've been following along with and hearing their voices for years, and you're like, kind of, whoa, what's going on here? Like Greg never felt that way to me, and always really welcoming of young people, whether it be in the booth to tag along but I will say the thing that always stood out to me about him was how he lit up for baseball. He loved Nebraska baseball.
He didn't have to do it. Like there was nothing in his contract or whatever that said you got to go out to Haymarket Park and on the road for 50 games a year, but he loved it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So that's a thing that comes to my mind immediately about him. There's plenty of, great calls and stuff like that, but you think about him as a person, I think that's a really good mark of a great dude.
I would say so. Greg would occasionally text or call me to see if I could come on the nightly show, and it was like every couple months, and Greg didn't have somebody call for him. He would do it himself, and it was always like, hey, if you have time, I know you're busy, could you be able to take a few minutes and come on and talk to us? And he'd have some subjects laid out in the call or the text. And I always found that so incredibly like gracious of him.
Mm-hmm.
Like there wasn't an expectation on his part, because he was Greg Sharpe, voice of Nebraska football, that like, of course I should do that. And it's like, hey, I'm asking you to do something. That was the impression I always got from Greg. And he was appreciative to a level that was beyond what was necessary. And then I would say also the way that he pretty quickly after he came to Nebraska in 2007, the way that or was it 07, 08, that around that time frame,
It was
part of a season in 07, and then, which was a strange time to be coming on board. But the way that he quickly became such a part of just the institution and the fabric, as a guy who was calling games at Kansas State before that, he just was Nebraskan. Like, it was not a weird fit, because he called games for a rival program for a number of years before coming to Lincoln. So that was, indicative of his personality, and just the want and desire that Greg had to not just call games, but like live as the Nebraska football voice.
Yeah. So for those of you who are like, oh, well, they hired this Kyle guy and he's not from here and he doesn't know anything about the Big Ten or Nebraska or anything like that, trust me, we'll be okay. But yes. And then the last comment here from Nathan was Husker Nation permission to shed a tear in honor of Greg Sharpe. That's awesome. A good way to finish out the mailbag week. All right, Mitch, anything else before we say goodbye?
No, that's it. Have a great weekend, everybody. Short week next week with the holiday, but we'll be back with lots of shows. Thanks for making us your first listen today at Locked On Nebraska. For your second listen, check out the Portal Show. Brian Smith has got the latest rumors, portal entries, and signings. Be the most informed fan on all of the rapid changes to the college football landscape. You can find the Portal on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts.